The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hi, welcome back to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. You are at the Durian Heat, where we discuss issues and matters around our Southeast Asia. But let's come back to our nation, Malaysia, where we can talk about our entrepreneurship / also startup scenes that is happening in Malaysia. We have invited the speaker named Ehon Chan, who is Executive Director of Magic, which heavily focuses on the entrepreneurship and those startup scenes. And one of the biggest organization in Malaysia here. So with Ehon, we're going to discuss more on the role of social entrepreneurship in creating sustainable economy in Malaysia as well as in regional level as well. So let's say good morning to him. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Right. So before we get into our really serious business here, just roughly, could you explain also describe what you do in Magic?
Sure. So my name is Ehon. I'm the Executive Director of Social Entrepreneurship at Magic, or Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center. So the center was set up by the Malaysian government to spearhead entrepreneurship development and also social entrepreneurship, the development of a social entrepreneurship ecosystem here in Malaysia. So I lead the social entrepreneurship unit with a grant of about 20 million ringgit. That's roughly, about close to $6 million in today's exchange rate. And our vision is to make Malaysia the regional leader for a people economy, where the discourse around economic development does not isolate the people or the citizens.
So you're in charge of social entrepreneurship. Can you define what it is exactly and how it functions?
Absolutely. So there is no uniform definition for social entrepreneurship around the world right now. So at Magic, we have taken quite a liberal approach to defining it, because we want to, first of all, have a clear line of what is social entrepreneurship and what is not, so that we support it. But at the same time, we're going to keep it open enough that we can, explore the one who are on the boundaries or on the edge. So social entrepreneurship is basically the application of an entrepreneurial attitude to a social problem. So take for example, in the layman's term, basically you take an entrepreneur who has all that mind and the attitude of driving a sustainable business or a profitable business,
right,
but apply that to a social problem. So generally speaking, they are founders of a social enterprise, and that social enterprise is an entity that has a social mission that exists to solve a social problem, but they run a business as well, and the business is run in order to meet the social mission.
So it's more like you open up your own business, but you also do contribute to the society, not in terms of the economic so much, but it's more on the society level, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the only confusion really is around social inconvenience. So when we talk about social problem, we don't mean social inconvenience. We mean pressing social issues where there is usually a beneficiary who are underserved or marginalized. And you're right. The main objective of a social enterprise is usually impact first, not so much about profit maximization.
And how do you change the mindset? Because especially when we talk about younger generation nowadays, of course they want to have a successful business with their being their own boss, that kind of type mindset. So when it comes to SE, social entrepreneurship, how do you approach younger generation?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that the younger generations are the one who are a lot more positive, or are more drawn towards social entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I think that there are several reasons for that. One of the reasons is that the younger generation, like our generation, grew up in abundance. We have the internet. We have technology. We have a huge advancement in technology. We have access to education, access to clean water, sanitation. The economy around the world is fairly stable right now, compared to the previous generation or the two generations before that, where they live in extreme poverty, depression, war, and stuff like that. So we're in a generation where a lot of young people now are coming out, starting to think, me being comfortable is not enough. I actually want to do my part so that others who are currently not doing okay can also have the same standard of living as myself as well. So one of the survey that we've done, we found that 1/3 of all social enterprises are run by young people.
Right.
In this case, people who are under the age of 35. So that's actually a really encouraging sign. We're seeing young people who now wants to go into something that's meaningful, a job or career that's meaningful.
So you're talking about young people from Malaysia or from a regional level?
I'm talking about Malaysia. But all around the world, we're also seeing that shift. So Deloitte published a report, I think just a couple of months ago, asking the millennials, what do you look for when you look for jobs? And pretty much 2/3 of them say that when they look for jobs, they want to look for a job that actually not only is doing well in terms of the business side, but they want to know that the work that they do contribute the larger societal good as well. So they want their job to actually be doing something good for the society, and just the usual corporate grind is not enough for them. So the younger generation really now want to focus on improving the well-being of the world.
Well, let's go back to the magic side for a while. So the government, you mentioned about the fund that it was allocated and in SE sector, right? So what do you SE in magic exactly do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Magic Social Entrepreneurship, we published the National Social Enterprise Blueprint, and it's also the guiding document on our strategy. The 3 key things that we want to focus on over the next 3 years are number 1, building a movement towards social entrepreneurship. This means raising awareness, training more social entrepreneurs, and getting more successful social enterprises. The second thing we want to focus on is around building a larger ecosystem. So training up more trainers, educating more corporates so that they come out to fund or invest in social enterprise, training more intermediaries so that they can better support the ecosystem. And the third strategic thrust that we define is around driving systemic changes. So looking at policies, looking at tax incentives, and all the various systemic things that has to be changed to make it friendlier for the social enterprise sector. So this year, our focus is on 3 things to build a movement towards social entrepreneurship. We focus on 3 core functions at Magic. The first core function is around awareness. We have a community team who travels through the rural areas and the rural and urban areas of Malaysia to raise awareness about what social entrepreneurship is all about. So they do a lot of the big conferences, the storytelling platform for social entrepreneurs, and host conversations to bring that awareness about social entrepreneurship. The second core function is the academy. That's where we run workshops, we run training, we run boot camps for budding social entrepreneurs or current social entrepreneurs, or those who are thinking about venturing into social enterprises. And then the third core function is around investment. So within investment, we run an accelerator. So we have a 4-month accelerator where we pick the 25 of Malaysia's best social enterprise idea to come live with us. We'll connect them to some of the best mentors around the world. We'll connect them to world-class instructors, to teach them. We'll provide them with stipend. We look after the accommodation, and at the end, we'll give them a seed funding of 30,000 ringgit to launch their social enterprise. We also do funding for existing social enterprise called the Amplify Awards. So Amplify Awards is for existing social enterprise who have been running for a while. We put in a cap. If they meet all the criteria and get selected for the award, we'll give them a capital of up to 150,000 ringgit to help scale up their social enterprise.
So those are the 3, I will say, attractive elements that Magic has for younger generation to encourage them to start their own businesses to impact the society.
Yeah, I mean, we don't just limit to the younger generation, but we do see that 60 to 70% of our participants are the younger ones, generally speaking.
So you also mentioned about the rural and also the urban areas, but of course your approaches to them is different, right?
Yes. So with the rural areas, obviously they have a very different system and hierarchies to the one in the urban areas. With urban areas, generally speaking, they're a lot more connected to technology, So when we do outreach or when we do any form of promotion, it's it's a lot easier, and we leverage on technology a lot more than when we do rural areas. With rural areas, we have to actually build the connection with the local communities. We actually have to spend time with them to understand the local local ecosystem. What are the things that that they're good at? What are some of the local industries and so on and so forth before we come up with any kind of strategy to build the outreach in rural areas. So it's a very different ball game altogether.
I can say that it's two different systems that Magic is approaching, and also it could be very challenging at the same time. But before we talk about challenges and hurdles, I would love to ask you, because here in Malaysia, if we talk about Malaysian education system, how do these college graduate or even high school students, they can think like they're on entrepreneurial level to be able to develop themselves before they get to know about the social entrepreneurship program in Magic?
I think that there's a few things that as young ones we can start thinking about. One is around every time we look at a problem or a social problem,
right.
We need to encourage the attitude of thinking, yes, there's a social problem. What can I do about it? If more younger generations start questioning themselves, what can I do about this? What can I do about this? And actually then go on to work out some ideas or some projects to alleviate some of this social problem that they observe themselves and become passionate about, then I think that is a really, really good start already. And then as they grow up, that's when, we can start shifting their mindset towards, turning into a social enterprise, something more sustainable, something that has a business model and so on and so forth. But that's definitely the first start, is to change the mindset and attitude of the people. The more we are, the more we become a nation where young people question, what can I do about it, and become active citizen or active participant in solving social problem, the better the country can become.
So do you have any plans to approach institutional level, like visiting schools and perhaps come up with the education modules or even curriculum for schools?
Yeah, so we haven't yet gone to schools yet, because we're only 8 months old. So we have gone with our quick win. The lowest hanging fruit here is obviously universities. Because most university students, their curriculum is not as strict as schools. So schools is, 7 a.m. to say 1 p.m. And the class is back to back. So it's extremely strict. With universities is a little bit more relaxed, right? Because it's distributed towards the day. So we approach a lot of universities, and we have partnership with some of these universities as well, where we bring some of our courses or workshops to them. In fact, currently we have a partnership with UiTM, Malaysia's largest university. And we run, a one-day workshop where we introduce them to very simple business modeling, impact measurement, issue-based problem solving, pitching, and stuff like that, just to give them a taste of social entrepreneurship.
So how did they receive all those terms and also the concepts of the social entrepreneurship?
Surprisingly, they actually loved it, because so we usually get their peers to be facilitators. So people are usually on the same age, or they have the same kind of energy. So they actually love it. Obviously sometimes we may have to explain some terms or some keywords a bit more. For example, dividend is a very foreign term to a lot of social science students, even art students, for example. So these are the little things that we just have to make sure that we are very aware of as we run the workshops.
And when it comes to social entrepreneurship, do you know any popular industry that the young generations they really want to work towards to?
Yeah, there's a few there's a few, we call it impact areas, that we found very popular among social entrepreneurs. The first one is education.
Right.
Yeah, and it's actually not surprising, given that, our education system is currently, definitely due for a big refresh. So we have quite a lot of social entrepreneurs in education, especially alternative education, the one who cannot fit into the mainstream. We have clean energy or green technology or sustainability, poverty alleviation or economic empowerment, youth development or community development, And I think those are the most popular ones.
It's very interesting how younger generation, they really want to work towards to give impact to the society level. It's very impressive, I will say.
Yeah, and very encouraging as well.
So we'll continue our conversation with the Ehon Chan after this short break. So stay tuned.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're still with Grace at the Durian Heat, and I've been speaking with Ehon Chan, who is Executive Director of Magic Social Entrepreneurship. And we've been discussing on this Magic Social Entrepreneurship and also the role of this entrepreneurship in creating sustainable economy in Malaysia as well as regional level. So Ehon, we've been talking about how the terms and also how Magic has been contributing and working towards to train and educate more younger generation as well as middle age as well. But what are the challenges and the hurdles that you can address that to our listeners they can expect?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest challenge that has huge implication for the sector is obviously the lack of awareness of social entrepreneurship at every single level. And we're not just talking about the general public, we're also talking about people in the private sector and the public sector as well. So with lack of awareness, it means that the general public would never think about social entrepreneurship as a career opportunity, or even venturing into starting a social enterprise. And that's an issue because then we can't show enough traction or movement towards that. The second problem with lack of awareness at the private sector is that a lot of private institutions then do not treat social enterprise as a legitimate sector. So take for example banks, right? Financial institution. They would never look at social enterprise as one of their clients. So they don't create any kind of loans or funding or financing for social enterprise, and it becomes a problem for the social enterprise because they can't access capital to either launch or grow their social enterprise, which traditional.
So you mean easier sense, it's more like it's really hard to be accepted legally, is it?
Well, they can't even get a loan because the financial institution don't even know what is a social enterprise.
Right.
So for example, for a business who wants to do printing, right? If I want to buy a printing machine, I can just go to the bank and borrow say 250,000 ringgit to buy a printing machine. But as a social enterprise, I go to the bank and say that I want to buy a printing machine. I need 250,000, but I only print recycled material, and because my whole product is around green empowerment, so it means that my cost is a little bit higher, my margin is a bit lower, and for me to pay back the loan is going to take a lot longer.
Right.
Banks would be like, oh, sorry, no, we don't work with that. So it's a very different ball game, and there's a lack of awareness amongst the corporate sector when it comes to social enterprise. At the public sector level as well, because a lot of policymakers do not understand social enterprise. Policies are not designed for social enterprise. So they're currently designed mostly for the private businesses, the profit maximizing businesses. So the tax is very high for social enterprise. Or they are designed for non-profit, where they limit their commercial activity so that charities and non-profit cannot become a corrupted funnel for people. So that's why there's no policy for social enterprise yet.
Then how do they learn or know to sustain their business after that?
That's why a lot of them actually have to, be very smart around the way that they structure the business. But they also rely a lot on individuals who understand social enterprise. So there are a small number of individuals who understand social enterprise and is willing to provide, either grants or investment or loans to existing social enterprises to help them scale up. And one of the reasons why we introduced a grant at Magic Social Entrepreneurship as well is because we know that it is difficult for a lot of social enterprises to access capital to help them grow.
Then let's talk about the importance of this social entrepreneurship. countries like Malaysia. Why do you think it is so important, especially coming from younger generations?
So Malaysia is a very interesting country because we are a country that has done very well in terms of the economy in the region. So you compare Malaysia to places like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. We've done a really good job to grow this country. The thing that is becoming an issue in Malaysia, and it is an issue around the world, especially the region, is that we created a large inequality, and that inequality is actually growing. The rich and the poor, or the have and don't haves. So there is still a large amount of people in Malaysia. We call them the bottom 40% of the society, or the bottom 40% of the pyramid, who actually still struggle in their day-to-day life, right? And most of them have, for example, most of them have jobs, but their salary is not enough to cover the cost of living because of inflation. Then they may not be living in extreme poverty, but they definitely are struggling because of the cost of living. So things like social entrepreneurship, creating businesses that do good and do well and concentrate on the people, allow us to slowly close that gap. And I think economic development around the world is at the crossroad where we're starting to think about a new narrative for economic development. So, for example, 2 decades ago, it was all about the industrial revolution. There was a lot of manufacturing and so on and so forth. Last century was a lot around consumerism. So, and perpetrated by places like United States, especially, where credit, loans, all these things are huge, and it's all about buy, loan, own. But we know from the recent the global financial crisis, all these became, the loans and credit created the whole global financial crisis. So what's that new narrative for economic development in our region if it's not consumerism, if it's not manufacturing, and with all these various social problems that's currently we're facing, maybe social entrepreneurship is the new economic development agenda that we can drive. So we're not only contributing to the economy, but we're also at the same time helping our people as well.
That's very good motivation, to be honest. Yes. Other than the financial or even to sustain their own business, I will say even changing mindsets among these Malaysians, if you talk about Malaysian context, will be another challenge, isn't it? Because we all grow up in a certain, forms or system in high schools and even middle school. And then when we step into this real world or society, we see a lot of challenges in front of our faces.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of us do take these problems for granted because we grew up around it and we see it every day. So we still don't see them as an opportunity to turn it into a business. So changing mindset is definitely a big thing.
Do you mind sharing 1 or 2 episodes that it did?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, currently we're doing a national roadshow to raise awareness about social entrepreneurship. So so we're traveling through the entire country, through 6 states, and for our Sahati program. So Sahati is a 2-day, I call it a storytelling platform, because during the first day, we actually invite successful social entrepreneurs to share their story about how they started their social enterprise. Usually each of this event attracts several hundred to several thousand attendees. And after the social entrepreneurs speak, we also talk a little bit about things like what is a social enterprise, what is not a social enterprise. We talk about what are the 5 common business models for social enterprise and various other things as well to spread that awareness and build that interest as well. And the story for the social entrepreneur hopefully inspire these participants to go on to start their own social enterprise. So that's currently happening. The next one is in Kuala Terengganu, and then after that we will be in Kuala Lumpur. The Kuala Lumpur one is going to be huge. We're going to be hosting it in conjunction with the ASEAN Entrepreneurship Summit on the 15th of November. And tickets is now available at sahati-kualalumpur.ptix.com. So yeah, it's going to be about 1,000 participants. So that's one of the things that we do. Another thing is a series of workshops. So we run workshops throughout the country, and usually it's different topics. It could, take for example, we're going to be in Penang doing a workshops around strategy and execution. So it's a training around how do you craft a comprehensive strategy for growth for your social enterprise. But more so is how do you then build it into a framework to execute that strategy as well. We run other workshops like business modeling, impact measurement, and so on and so forth.
That's amazing. But throughout the workshops and the conferences, I want to go back to the ASEAN Summit that you mentioned. It looks like it's going to be quite a big scale, meeting different people from different countries, especially when it comes to Southeast Asia. So what do you expect to gain from this summit?
So the summit is going to be a collection of various events throughout a whole week.
Right.
So it technically will start on the 16th to the 22nd of November, but the 15th of we're going to launch Sehati on the 15th of November. During that week happened to be the Global Entrepreneurship Week as well, so that's great. And during the whole week there will be all sorts of activities. From Magic Social Entrepreneurship side, we'll be hosting a boot camp where we will bring together ASEAN participants and Malaysian participants, about 150 to 200 of them, to do a weekend hackathon on a social problem that ASEAN countries face, whether it's education, whether it's haze, and the environment, and so on and so forth. We're also going to be doing Sehati. We have pitch demo day. Our accelerator participants are going to finish off that week. So they'll be pitching to investors. We're bringing investors from all around the world into Malaysia, and allow the social entrepreneurs to pitch to these investors. We're also going to be hosting a workshop with YSEALI in collaboration with the United States Embassy. So YSEALI is the Youth Southeast Asia Leadership Initiative, launched by Barack Obama. So there's going to be all kinds of events. Our objective really is to really create a jam-packed event so that social entrepreneurs of every level has an activity that they can participate in. If you're in early stages, you can join Sehati. If you have some curiosity, you understand social entrepreneurship, you have curiosity to participate, you can join the boot camp. If you're already a social enterprise, you can pitch your social enterprise. If you are, if you're just looking for a workshop, you can join the YSEALI program. So there's going to be all sorts of events for every social entrepreneurs at every stage.
I see a lot of opportunities for everyone to join and also participate for this particular event.
Yes.
Well, in Malaysia, do you think we have an adequate legal and also administrative system to encourage this particular area to grow? When it comes to business, we need to know how to register.
Unfortunately, no. So Malaysian public sector has not really lead the policy side when it comes to social enterprises. However, the Prime Minister recently set up the National Entrepreneurship Development Office that sits under the Ministry of Finance, who have named social enterprise policy as a strategic initiative that we need to focus on. So they are going to play the strategic policy role within government to champion policy changes or policy revision for entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship development. And one of the key initiatives is social enterprise policy, and we'll be doing a couple of activities with them to help inform this policy change. The first one is we're going to host a social enterprise policy roundtable during the ASEAN Entrepreneurship Summit as well.
Perfect.
So we'll bring in policymakers from ASEAN countries who are working around the social enterprise sector and have a conversation around the policy that works and doesn't work. We'll also then do a study visit. So our chairman, also the Secretary General of the Ministry of Finance, Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Iwan Suriga, will be leading a delegation from Magic and the ministries over to the UK. So it will be hosted mainly by Magic in collaboration with British Council and AIM, Agency Inovasi Malaysia, to visit these various policy makers or key institutions in the United Kingdom and look at how they craft policies to increase or to encourage social entrepreneurship and social investment as well. And next year we will continue that conversation and start crafting some of these policies and push it through the government level, and hopefully we see some of this social enterprise policy gets adopted.
Awesome. It sounds very promising. At the same time, even myself, I'm very looking forward to attending and also participating this event in ASEAN Summit.
Great. Please feel free.
Yes. Well, so we'll take a really short break, and then when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Ehon Chan. So stay tuned.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. You are at the Durian Heat with Grace, and I've been speaking with Ehon Chan, who is Executive Director of Magic in Social Entrepreneurship area there. So we've been sharing quite interesting points, as well as he has been highlighting a lot on social entrepreneurship. So Ehon,
Yes.
I would love you to make some comparison, perhaps in Malaysia versus other country when it comes to social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. So social entrepreneurship is still fairly new in Malaysia. In fact, it's still in its very early stages in most countries around Asia. However, we can compare it to, for example, United Kingdom,
Right.
Which obviously is the pioneer when it comes to social entrepreneurship. There's now 70,000 social enterprises in the UK. They contribute to about 5% of the GDP of the country.
Amazing.
It employs more than 1 million people, so it's a huge sector over there. In the United States, it's been calculated around 3.5% of the GDP comes from social enterprises. And in the region, in Asia, the one that's leading the movement would be, probably the closest one to us would be Thailand. So Thailand set up the previous prime minister set up the Thai Social Enterprise Office, who champions the social entrepreneurship development from training to research and also policy as well. So they have done great work over in Thailand. And the other country that has made really huge headway is South Korea. South Korea government has been extremely proactive in promoting social entrepreneurship in the country, from setting up the Korean Social Investment Fund, which looks at very innovative financing for social economic organizations, to setting up things like Korea Social Enterprise Promotion Agency that looks at supporting the local social enterprises. The SK Group, which is a huge tycoon over in South Korea, correct me if I'm wrong, is also a very active player in the social enterprise ecosystem. So Korea has made huge progress. In fact, I'm going to Korea next week to look at the policy side as well.
Right.
And so in the region, these are the few countries who are definitely ahead of the game.
Malaysia is still developing. Any elements that we can learn from at this initial stage from these countries?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that Malaysia has, even though Malaysia is still very in its early stages, we've made a lot of progress. And I may be biased here, but I think that the development of of Magic social entrepreneurship has definitely created a lot of energy as well as investment in the ecosystem. But the thing we have to just be aware of, but also at the same time be mindful about, is that when we invest in the development of this sector, whether financially or in other ways like policy changes and stuff like that, we have to do it strategically and smartly.
Right.
If everyone just go on to do something without actually having a strategy behind it, it actually could do damage to the sector. So we just have to be mindful of that. But having said that, though, I think that we're doing fairly well in this country.
Right, great. And so basically you do foresee this SE area emerging as a very viable and also sustainable career in the near future in Malaysia.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are the other expectations that you're hoping to grow and push forward when it comes to social entrepreneurship?
Well, I hope that a lot more corporates will get involved. I think that a lot of corporates are scared of getting involved for various reasons. But, as we grow this sector in Malaysia, hopefully a lot of them will start jumping onto the bandwagon. And they will start understanding social enterprise and don't feel as overwhelmed of supporting social enterprises.
Right. It's just the one point it just came across my mind, because when you mention all those countries as examples such as South Korea, UK and USA, but when you come to Malaysia, the language is something that we cannot avoid. It's quite segregated, isn't it? We have different languages. Do languages actually affect when it comes to social entrepreneurship as to grow the whole community?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say languages, I don't mean languages in the stereotypical sense of English, Malay, and Chinese, and so on and so forth. And I'm talking more about languages in the terms of, you know, the corporate language, the social sector language, the public sector language, because each of these sectors have their own language that's can be foreign and isolating to other people. For example, for private sector to talk about dividend is a very foreign concept to the social sector. So it's just something that we just have to be mindful of as we converse in the sector. But languages definitely have a huge impact on the development as well. We do usually 2 languages, so the workshops are mostly in English, but our outreach are mostly in 2 languages, English and Malay.
That's very good. So those are one of the things that people may wonder, how do Magic probably approach different community when they speak different languages?
Yeah, exactly. Apart from everything that we've spoken about, the only thing I would say is that, you know, even though I think a lot of people has the curiosity for social entrepreneurship, they just don't know how to get into it. I think the first thing to do is definitely read up on it and form your opinions about social entrepreneurship. I started that way as well. I didn't know what the term was, but it sounded interesting enough for me to read up all about it before I then started my own social enterprise. And if you're thinking about starting a social enterprise, definitely come give us drop us an email or contact us or participate in any one of our programs and find out more. Like I said again, our existence, you know, Magic Social Entrepreneurship is developed to support you, and your job is to come up with a world-changing ideas, and my job is to back you 100% in everything that you want to do, as long as it's beneficial for the society.
Right. Well, that sounds very promising again here. But I just raised another question in my mind, Ehon. When it comes to creative industries such as music, art, or even performing arts, but they want to become a social entrepreneur, they just have all the skills and talents in them, but how are they able to build their business?
Well, that's a fairly difficult question to answer. Only because it's very, very broad. Music and art is a creative industry is such a broad industry, and so, you know, and so when we talk about how to make it more socially entrepreneurial or how to make it more impactful, it's difficult to generalize one size fits all for a whole big industry. But we have seen, you know, social enterprises who have become successful in that. For example, Tanoti. Tanoti is a social enterprise that train, generally speaking, poor or rural women to weave songket. So songket is a dying art in Malaysia, and is a very important traditional art form for this country, but it's becoming extinct because the younger generation don't practice it anymore. So Tanoti seek to preserve this culture and train these women to help to weave this songket, and they market it to the international market to keep it alive.
So that's one of the examples.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, social entrepreneurship embraces every single area that we can think about.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So that's the end of our interview today at the Durian Heat. Thank you so much, Ehon.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and all the best with your coming up workshops and also trips to other countries as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.